Welcome to Deep or Nothing with Miss Daisy O, the podcast where we explore the art of deep thinking. Join me as we dive into thought provoking conversations that challenge the surface and uncover the profound truths that shape our lives.
Hi, deep thinkers. How you doing? I hope that you're keeping your body, mind, and soul right. You know what they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And they also say the first wealth is health. I'm sure they also say prevention is better than cure, and the healthy outside starts from the inside. So, I know I won't get a feedback, but I'm choosing to trust you. I think all I'm just saying is, I really hope that you're okay.
What makes a life worthwhile? Is it life itself? Or is it how we live it? Is it the people we know, the people we meet, the places we go, the achievements we collect? Is it the wealth we accumulate? Is it the lives we impact? What exactly makes a life worthwhile? Because if we're honest, most people don't simply want to exist. Most people want their lives to matter. They want to leave something behind. They want to know that when they were here, their presence made a difference. They want their choices to mean something, their sacrifices and struggles to mean something. Nobody wants to suffer for nothing. In fact, in this part of the world, we even pray about it. We pray that our hustle pays. And that raises an interesting question. How do we measure whether our lives were worthwhile? For a lot of people, one of the answers is children. Children become one of the most tangible forms of legacy because a child comes after you. They carry your name, your influence, your values. They carry parts of your story. But beyond success, beyond good grades, beyond careers, what do parents really want from their children?
As a parent, I want my children to give me joy. I want them to succeed in anything they do. I want my children to make it and become somebody in the society, to protect the name of the family, not the one that will bring shame to the family, to be a blessing to their generation. Even the Bible said it in the book of Psalm 127, as arrows are in the hands of a mighty man, so are children of our youth. It says, happy is the man that has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemy in the gate. That is what I want for my children.
If we're being honest, there's something deeply human about wanting continuity. I remember being in my early 20s and thinking about something that sounds funny now. I wanted a protege, not because I was old, not because I had accomplished anything extraordinary, but because I had reached a point where I cared deeply about how I saw the world, right? I had ideas, convictions. I had ways of thinking, and there was a part of me that wanted to pour those things I knew into someone else. I wanted to see someone think through life the way that I did. I wanted continuity. Looking back, I think that's a deeply human desire. Most of us want something of ourselves to continue beyond ourselves. And maybe that helps us understand parents a little better. Because if I could feel like that in my 20s about a protege, imagine how much stronger that feeling becomes when the person in front of you is your child, a child you carried, one that you raised, a child whose first experiences of the world came through you. So yes, I think it is completely natural for parents to see part of themselves in their children. In fact, it would be strange if they didn't. But this is where things begin to get complicated. Because while a child is influenced by you, a child is not you. I'll say that again. A child is influenced by you, but a child is not you. And that distinction matters more than many of us realize. Because parents invest heavily in children. They invest time, they invest money, energy, attention, they invest sleep, opportunities, sometimes careers, sometimes entire seasons of their lives. Parenting asks for a lot. And unlike many other investments, parenting doesn't ask for a few months or a few years. It asks for decades. Not because parents stop being individuals, but because parenting requires a degree of surrender. The moment children arrive, parts of life just stop being entirely about you. Your decision affects someone else. Same with your schedule. In fact, your priorities affect someone else. Your resources do the same. And over time, you begin making choices with another human being in mind. Now, whether you're a parent listening to this or not, I think most of us can agree on one thing. That kind of investment is significant. And when human beings make significant investments, something else naturally follows. Your guess is as good as mine. Expectation. The deeper the sacrifice, the stronger the expectation becomes. And if parenting asks for much, what exactly makes all those sacrifices worth it?
Parent sacrifice goes beyond the tangible actions of losing sleep or working extra hours. It's more of the intentions or conditions behind those choices, mostly empowerment of the child or charting a path of success in the child's life. But for me, a crucial aspect is alignment. When the sacrifices are channeled towards empowering the child to pursue their own purpose rather than just fulfilling the parent's ambition. So for me, I think that is it. The sacrifice to guide rather than to dictate, allowing the child to author their own life story. So for me, I think that is what would make a parent's sacrifice worth it.
Human nature. When we give little, we expect little. When we give much, we expect much. And this is where I think one of the most important transitions in parenting occurs. That transition from hope to expectation. Most parents do not wake up one morning and decide to pressure their children. I don't think that's how it happens. Pressure, however, often arrives disguised as something much more noble, like hope, like concern. It disguises as guidance, as love. You hear a parent say, I just want what's best for you. And they mean it. A parent says, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. And they mean it. A parent says, we sacrificed too much for this. And somehow underneath that statement is genuine investment. I'm talking love, hope, true love. But the question remains, at what point does hope become pressure? Because, listen, there's a difference between wanting the best for a child and wanting something specific for a child. And I think many of us underestimate how easy it is to confuse these two. A parent wants their child to succeed. There's nothing wrong with that. A parent wants opportunities for their child. There's nothing wrong with that. A parent wants their child to avoid unnecessary suffering. And there's nothing wrong with that. But slowly, sometimes almost invisibly, the child's outcome begins to carry more weight than it should. Because right now, that child isn't merely becoming, that child is validating. And this is where I think the conversation becomes uncomfortable. Because sometimes parents do not merely want their children to succeed. They need their children to succeed. And this is not because they're bad people. It's not because they're selfish. But because the child's outcome has become evidence that the parents' sacrifices were worthwhile. And I think this is where parenting quietly becomes something more than parenting. It becomes personal. Now, when the child succeeds, it doesn't just feel like the child succeeded. It feels like the parents succeeded. And when the child struggles, it doesn't just feel like the child is struggling. It can feel like the parent has failed. And that's a heavy burden for any relationship to carry. Because the child is no longer just a child. The child has become a reflection. You can call it a report card. More like a proof of concept. Overall, it's evidence that the parents got something right. And before anyone misunderstands me, I don't think this happens because parents are selfish. I think it happens because parents are human. Human beings naturally want their sacrifices to mean something. We naturally want our investments to produce fruit. Human beings naturally want evidence that what they poured into something mattered. The problem is that children are not projects, they're people. And people are far less predictable than projects.
Enjoying the podcast? Follow and turn on notifications for new episodes weekly.
Welcome back to Deep or Nothing with Miss Daisy O.
Let me state a few differences, right? A project can be managed. A child can only be guided. You see, a project can be controlled, but a child eventually develops a will of their own. A project follows instructions. A child eventually begins asking questions. And this is where many parents experience a tension that they never anticipated. The very thing they spent years helping a child develop, which is the ability to think independently, is now the thing that eventually challenges them. The child starts having opinions, they have preferences, convictions even. This child dreams, they have ideas. And sometimes those ideas don't resemble the ones the parents imagined. Sometimes the child becomes something different. Well, not necessarily worse, right? Just different. And that difference can be difficult for parents to accept. And it's not because they hate the child, but because somewhere along the way, they became attached to a future where the child became a particular type of person. And when that future begins to disappear, it can feel like loss. I think upon times when my mom tells me her approach to raising male children, and she'll tell me, I didn't raise my male children for myself. I understood early on that I was raising them for other people, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Now, I think this is where another uncomfortable truth enters the conversation. Many parents are not only raising children, many parents are also carrying unfinished stories, right? Stories that they may not even realize they're carrying. Dreams that they never achieved, opportunities they never had, lives they wanted but never lived, even validation that they never received, and for some of them, it's pain that they never resolved. And because those stories remain unfinished, they just naturally look for somewhere to go. And the way this happens, right? Sometimes these stories would go into careers, sometimes these things will go into relationship, and sometimes they go into children. You hear it in the things that parents say. Things like, I want my child to have the opportunities I never had, or I don't want my child to suffer the way I suffered. I don't want my child to make the mistakes I made. On the surface, these statements, they sound noble, and often they are, but underneath them is a question worth examining. How much of what we want for our children is actually about our children, and how much of these things is about us? This is not an accusation, it's a question. There's a difference between wanting the best for a child and wanting a child to redeem something from your own life. And I think many of us underestimate how easy it is to confuse the two. At some point, the child is no longer carrying only their own future. The child is carrying part of their parents' emotional history. The failed dream, the missed opportunity, the painful childhood, or the sacrifice, maybe even the regrets, or the unfinished chapter. You want your kids to start where you stopped. And that's a lot for one human being to carry. Which is why I think one of the most important questions in this entire conversation is this. Is the child carrying their own future or someone else's unfinished past? Because those are not the same thing. And the answer matters. It matters because children eventually become adults. And adults raised under heavy expectations, right? They often face very difficult questions. One of which is, who am I when nobody is expecting anything from me? Think about that for a moment. Who are you when all the voices go quiet? When there's no parent to impress, no script to follow, no expectation to fulfill, or even any dream to inherit? Who are you? For a lot of us, childhood expectations don't disappear. They just grow with us. It's almost not strange that some people become successful and still never feel free. They achieve everything that was asked of them. They become the doctor, the lawyer, the exec, success story, and yet something still feels unfinished, unresolved. Not because they failed, because the success belongs to a story that started before they arrived. And eventually they begin asking, is achievement still achievement if it was chosen for me? That's a difficult question. Not because it has an easy answer, but because many people have never even stopped long enough to ask that question. Now, before this starts sounding like an argument against parenting, let me say something very clearly. Children, they owe their parents something. I do not believe that they owe their parents nothing. I don't. I think children owe gratitude. I think they owe honor. I think children owe respect, appreciation. But also, right, we all need to clearly understand and agree that gratitude is not the same thing as validation. Neither is respect nor honor. And that difference, that distinction, it matters because gratitude says, I recognize what you did for me. Validation says, my life must prove that what you did was worth it. And those are very different things. One is healthy, the other is a burden. And that brings me to what I think is the central question of this episode. Can another human being justify your life's decisions? Can they? Can someone else make your sacrifices worthwhile? Can another human being prove that you lived correctly? Or can they become evidence that your life mattered? The answer is no, a big no. And this isn't because other people don't matter, but because every life is its own responsibility. A child can understand your sacrifices, they can appreciate them, they can even benefit from your sacrifices, right? But a child cannot become responsible for making those sacrifices meaningful. That responsibility belongs to the person who made them. Because if the meaning of my life depends entirely on another person's outcome, then I've handed them a burden that they were never designed to carry. And maybe this is why parenting becomes so emotionally complicated. Because children are not for us to keep. They're not. I can't overemphasize this, right? As beautiful as they are, as precious as they are, as attached as we become, children are not for us to keep. They're entrusted to us. We're merely stewards. We raise them, we guide them, protect them, teach them, prepare them, and slowly, sometimes painfully, I admit, we release them. The goal of parenting is not possession, it is preparation. The goal is not to create another version of yourself. The goal is to help another human being become themselves. And thinking about it, right? Many parents know this intellectually. It's just, the challenge is just accepting it emotionally. Because emotionally, children feel like extensions of us. I can bet that a lot of you call your kids mini-me's. And emotionally, right? Their victories feel like our victories. Their failures feel like our failures. Their pain like our pain. And their future feels tied to our own story. And that's completely understandable. But you see, understandable and healthy are not always the same thing. There comes a point where every parent must answer a difficult question. If my child becomes a good person, let's say a good human being, but not the human being that I imagined, have I failed?
Success by society standard means being rich, powerful, famous, and all of that. I think that's what people consider being successful, which is not completely true. You need to be able to give value, good values. You need to be able to impact lives. You need to be able to touch lives, touch places positively to be considered successful. And you can't give all of this if you don't have it in you. So you have to be a good person to be able to give goodness. You have to be a good person to be able to touch lives positively. If my child grows into a good person, but by society standard isn't considered successful, maybe it's not that powerful, it's not that famous, I would consider my parenting absolutely successful. Because, I have a child who wants to do good. I have a child who wants to give goodness. I have a child who wants to give the good values. So yes, I would consider my parenting successful, completely successful.
Maybe success in parenting depends on how we define success itself. If my child chooses a different path, have I failed? If my child becomes someone I didn't expect, have I failed? Maybe the answer is no. Maybe success in parenting is not producing the person you imagined. Maybe success in parenting is helping another human being become the person that they we're capable of becoming, even when that person surprises you, even when they choose differently, or when they write a story you never planned. Because once again, a child is influenced by you, but a child is not you. And maybe that is the lesson hidden in all of this, that love does not always mean possession, that guidance does not always mean control, that sacrifice does not automatically create ownership, and that legacy is not the same thing as replication. Children may honor their parents, they may reflect their parents, they may continue what their parents started, but no child, none, was born carrying the responsibility of proving that another person's life was worthwhile. Because every life, yours, mine, must eventually answer that question for itself. And maybe the healthiest thing a parent can say is not, make my sacrifices worth it, but I hope the life I helped you build becomes worth living. And I think those two things are very different things. And that's a wrap on this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Deep or Nothing.
Let's go deep, or not at all.